First, welcome to Young Entrepreneur Syndicate. Click your got it so we can record this for posterity's sake. First, I want to thank Jim last week for your comments on interviews and why they're relevant, whether we're interviewing for our own sake or whether we're interviewing for increasing our staff as we grow. It scratched the surface, and I'm excited because I think there's more there that we can uncover and unravel in a future episode. So that being said, we're going to jump in. Tonight's core value is on develop, and the topic, if you read your email, was assess strengths and weaknesses. And we can have some fun with this. We've talked around this issue, but we're going to go straight at it today. I've got a couple of quotes, and one of them is actually mine from my Instagram post today. And I'll start there. It says, belief is influence. And what I mean by that is, if you believe a thing, whatever that thing is, it is influencing you. It is influencing your actions. And Jim's said it, his mantra from, his in and out days has been, you can achieve what you believe. What you believe you can achieve. And so factoring in that influence component is important because that's really what our belief system is. It influences how we think, how we act, how we interact with people. And that gets us back to strengths and weaknesses. And we get to talk about me a little bit tonight because I had plenty of weaknesses. Well, we'll talk about that in a sec. Here's my favorite quote of the night is Bruce Lee. Always be yourself, express yourself, have faith in yourself. Do not go out and look for a successful personality and duplicate it. Be yourself. Next is from Beverly Engel. Critical words to a child are as painful and damaging as being physically hit. They are verbal slaps in the face. Insulting names echo in a child's mind over and over again until he comes to believe he is indeed stupid, selfish, lazy, ugly, and in fact, that is all he is. And I bring this up because in prior reading, teaching, research, we've discovered that people are what they were as kids. They bring that all the way to adulthood, good, bad, and ugly. And we're going to go backward in time a little bit. Jim and I, as many of you know, are teaching a high school class on entrepreneurship. And a week ago, I was talking about kids being labeled. And we're going to dive into that tonight. I asked a high school class, this is a private school, well-adjusted, very intelligent kids, socially well-adjusted, academically well-adjusted. And I asked them for a show of hands. I said, how many of you have been labeled, by a teacher, by friends, by other people, by your parents, in some fashion or another, whether you're controlling, you're emotional, lacking focus, too critical, etc. Just ask them, how many of you have been labeled where you've heard that message more than once? Over 80% of this well-adjusted, intelligent class raised their hands. We are a product of our environment. We are influencing those around us. And we need to be conscious of that, but we need to be conscious of what we've become based on what we've heard. And so tonight we're going to backtrack a little bit and get into that. Because labels, how we label ourselves, how we've been labeled, it's our branding. And think about a brand, when you brand cattle, you're literally burning something into them that can never go away. They have brand inspectors. That cow will always be under that brand. And when we label somebody, that labeling is branding. And so if we walk around and we believe that label and we start acting as that label defines us, if we use that, we are literally branding. That we're branding ourselves. We're branding our nature. We're branding how we go out into the world. We're branding our relationships with those labels. So how did you become your brand? Think about that. Go backward a little bit. Jobs you've had, what employers have told you, what other people have said to you. And it's usually not even the people we know, admire, and respect. Sometimes it's those off-the-cuff comments. I'm in politics. I've been branded a lot, right? And you get to a point where, you have to be able to separate those things from being truly hurtful, where you take them inside. It doesn't mean they don't, it just means you have to get through it. You got to get beyond it. And you have to mentally, psychologically have categories and a place to put those. You can deal with them, you can talk about them, you can say they don't matter, but you remember them. I can tell you, I can remember just about every conversation where somebody slighted me, whether it's in a newspaper article or whatever. You take that with you. So finding a healthy way to deal with it is important, and it's part of our job as entrepreneurs, because you're going to be out there and you're going to have the naysayers, you're going to have people telling you you're doing it wrong and all that. So, and it's going to lead into Jim's discussion next week. I'll give you the prelude to that now, which is how do we handle disappointment? Right? How do we deal with failure and disappointment? But the first thing I want to tell you is being different is okay. In fact, it's not just okay. If you're an entrepreneur, I think being different is essential. If you're doing the same thing the way everyone else is doing it, we've always heard that. If there are two of you and you all think the exact same way, one of you is not necessary, right? The same thing is true in the marketplace. If everyone's doing the same thing the same way, whether it's pizza, we wouldn't have Godfathers. We've got Pizza Hut, we've got Domino's, we've got Papa Murphy's, we've got the take and bakes. We've got all these different things because people are doing it different. It's not that they want to do it the same. As entrepreneurs, we have to be different, think different, and embrace being different. And this is your pep talk. Embrace being different. That's what we get to do. We're not everybody else because we weren't made to be everybody else. We were made to put our brand on other things. We're made to put our brand on how we deal with people in respectful, loving, kind ways. That's how we can brand other people. That's our job as entrepreneurs. That's how we brand our staff. That's how we brand our business partners. That's how we brand our family. So start there. And again, embrace what makes you unique. And that may be, actually, we're going to dive into labels in a little bit, because some of you who have been branded need to rebrand yourself. It's time to do a rebranding, remarket yourself, relaunch the new you, how you're going to approach things differently. So labels often focus on, especially with kids, on the difficulties a child is having or the difficulties a child creates for the parent, right? And we've all been kids, so I get to blame all of us for that. We have put our parents through different trials. And I'm sure we've all been told one thing or another at one time or another that, we are being this, we're being difficult, we're being stubborn, emotional, whatever. Labels can be difficult in the past, but they're not really part of our identity unless we let them be. So labeling people adults, it lowers the adult's expectation of their children. If you're labeling your employees, oh, they're just lazy or they're not motivated. If you're labeling them, you are actually branding them with that. So we've got to change those expectations that we have for ourselves, for our business partners, for our vendors, for the people we do business with that are in that supply chain line, for the people we interact with in our business dealings. And just remember that the expectations of children they can unduly influence their interpretation of a child's actions, right? So let's talk about this for just a second. I'm going to back up. The other day, I've had this bird nest over my patio out on my lanai, right? I've got this robin nest that was built 3 years ago. And this robin came in, they set this thing up right over the top of, I've got tarps on my pergola, so I don't get rain and all that kind of stuff. But this robin's nest was up there in a really nice location. And it's been there for 3 years. The second year it was there, they tried to reuse it, and a blue jay came in and ate the eggs, and then crows came in. I mean, there have been battles going on over this nest. Last year it was full of snow, and I wanted to take a picture of it. I wanted to make a little sign that said closed for the season. I was going to be clever and cute, post it on Instagram or something, and stick it up in this bird nest and just say, it's like a B&B, a VRBO, closed for the season. But this this summer we had a windstorm and that nest finally blew out of the tree. And then now it's laying down on my patio and I had to clean this thing up. And I started thinking about this. So here's a bird, right? We've heard people call bird brains, right? Little brain, can't think, wake up to a new world every day. So here is a bird that made this intricate nest, and you could see all the different materials that it used, how it built the outside structure so it was, bulkier and beefier, and then the inside had all the soft, fuzzy stuff lining in with it. And that bird did not go to a technical school or a trade school. It didn't go to college. It didn't meet with any committees. It had no test markets, no focus groups, no permits, no safety inspections, and no judgment. It saw a need and it filled it. It's an entrepreneur. In the animal kingdom, a bird brain, what people joke about, is a perfect example of being an entrepreneur. There's a need, and it had and created, found, got, retrieved, structured everything it needed to accomplish its task. And if a bird can do that, how much more are we as conscious, cognitive human beings able to accomplish? What can we not do? And we can do anything we put our minds to. And labels are things that hinder us. They're the crows and the blue jays that come in and try and thwart the activity we're doing. They're the wind, blowing out there, trying to knock us out. We've got all that kind of stuff. So I want you to think tonight about rebranding. If you've been labeled or if you've labeled somebody else, and I'm thinking workplace, family life, this goes beyond, just when you were a kid. Lazy, okay? Let's rebrand that. We're going to look at positive things here. Lazy might just be that person's relaxed. They're calm under pressure. They don't share the same urgency or priorities for the task at hand because maybe it's not been explained to them in a way that they need to understand it, right? So maybe they're not lazy. Maybe there's just a disconnect there. Maybe part of that's our fault. How about controlling? Controlling and bossy. I could go into a whole dissertation on things I've experienced in the workplace with controlling and bossy, but I won't. So let's say controlling. These people want to create order. Let's look at it on a positive side. They want to create order. They're systems focused. They're trying to make sense of the world. Those are good traits for an entrepreneur to have, right? Emotional. Oh, that person's always emotional. How about maybe they're empathetic? Maybe they're intuitive. Maybe they're suffering and they've got personal burdens and they haven't been able to redirect that. But maybe those are the kind of people we need to be able to reach deeper into our customer base. Those don't have to be negative qualities. Those can be things, maybe we've got people in the wrong place, right? Maybe they could be in a different department and do a better job based on their ability to empathize and be intuitive. We've heard this one, disorganized. And this isn't me, okay? I love order. If it's not in order, to me, it's chaos. I've got piles, I've got different books, but there's an order to everything, right? For me, disorganization causes me stress, but it doesn't cause everyone stress. And that's a good thing. Sometimes disorganized people have peace in the midst of chaos. I don't. So that could be a flaw for me, right? When things get crazy, are you going to be able to have a steady course? Are you going to be able to steer through that? Because sometimes disorganized people don't mind that sort of thing. And it may just be that they have different priorities. I remember years ago when I was building a network marketing business, and I was busy. I mean, I was burning the candle at both ends. So I had a full-time real job, right? Working for somebody else. And I was working 50 plus hours a week, sometimes 60. And I was building this business on the side, and I dedicated 15 extra hours a week to build that business. And that turned in, as it started growing, it turned into a lot more. And my wife stepped in and she was doing a lot more. We had 4 young children at home and we homeschooled. So she was taking the burden on, and she made sure I had a change of clothes when I got off of work, to put a suit and tie on, go to the other job. And she made sure I was fed all the time and all the kids were done. And there were times she was under stress. She said, I didn't get the house dusted today. And I said, look, honey, I don't care. I said, that's not the priority. That is not my priority. I said, write me love notes in the dust. That's my priority. We can change our focus on that disorganization and chaos. It can be something bad, or we can just say, that's the way it is right now. It's temporary, and turn it into something positive. We have to look for those opportunities and create those opportunities, no matter what we're doing, to shift the focus, to shift the gear, to find the positive in there, not just for ourselves, for our family, right? That's not always easy. I'm glad to see Samantha jumped on here. I wish she would have heard that one, okay? So finding order within the chaos, it's always there. It might seem disorganized, but there's always order even within chaos. It's our job as entrepreneurs, as business people, to find or create the order in that chaos. And to me, that's a challenge. That's what makes this fun. It's hard. It's, as Jim said, this is hard. It's not easy. It's hard as hell. But if you embrace it from a different point of view, it can be fun. It can be challenging. So moving on, people who lack focus. Have we heard that one? That kind of goes along with the disorganized or scattered, whatever. Maybe those people are just easily bored. Maybe they're not challenged. Maybe they're preoccupied with other thoughts. My oldest daughter, when she was in school, 5th grade, she kept getting in trouble. She got sent to the principal's office before we pulled her out and started homeschooling. And they said, she's being disruptive to the class. She's being disruptive. And this has been going on for a couple of years, right? She's always disruptive. We finally, we went into a meeting with the principal and the school counselor, and we looked at Cassie and we said, Cassie, do you know what disruptive means? And she just sat there and she said, no. So here she is being scolded for being disruptive, and she doesn't even know what that is. And you know what it turned out to be? She finished all of her work in 5 or 10 minutes. And so she was wanting to chit chat with the other kids. They didn't get their work done. She was always ahead of the curve. She had finished, I think, sophomore level math work, right? Her math curriculum was college level when she was a freshman. She worked that fast, that far in advance. She could just grab a task, absorb it, and move on. But she was labeled as being disruptive. Those kind of labels stick, right? So she wasn't pulled out of school for being disruptive. I think that's what she still remembers, even now as an adult. But she was pulled out because she was so far advanced in getting her work organized and completed that she just got in the way of other people who were slower than her. So think about that. We have to be careful of how we label other people, okay? Critical. This is a good one. We all know people who are critical, right? How about this? They care. They understand that details are important. That's a good thing. That you want your accountant to be critical, right? You want your chief financial officer to be critical. You want your tax attorney to be critical, right? Those are good qualities to have. And they may just be mirroring behavior of others. And maybe we need to mirror some of their behavior. Maybe we need to be a little bit more critical so we can see it from their point of view, whatever that is. It may not just be a numbers game, in mechanics, in firearms, right? If you're reloading bullets, I'm telling you, you better pay attention to detail because things are critical. Little things are critical. So those aren't bad things necessarily. Don't let people label you for being too critical. Attention to detail is a good thing. Here's a good one, competitive. Instead of just saying, that person's always competitive, how about they're driven, they're self-motivated, they're energetic. Think about this not just with kids. As adults, I want competition. I want to be competitive. I want to outperform and outdo anybody that's working alongside me. I don't want to be the one, I don't want to be the slacker. I don't ever want to be the one that people think they have to drag along. That's not me. It's not my mentality. That's my competitive nature. I'm driven, I'm self-motivated, I'm energetic. Don't call me competitive. Competitive has a negative connotation. I'm driven and self-motivated. That's what I am, okay? And that's a good skill, again, for entrepreneurs. Stubborn. That's a good one. How many of you have been called stubborn? Come on, raise a hand. I see some hands out there, right? All right. How about we're just strong-willed? I'm not a pushover. I'm not going to be the one if everyone's doing something that I'm just going to do it. I'll be the one to stand up and say, no, let me think about this. I'm not just going to jump on the bandwagon. And I'll tell you, in my political career, I'm stubborn, right? That's a good quality to have. I'm not going to be pushed around. Stubborn, strong-willed, steadfast, stick to your values. Those are good traits. Being stubborn is not a bad thing. We hear about mules being stubborn, right? Stubborn as a mule. I'll tell you this quick story. I didn't plan on this, but I'll throw it in there. In Butte, Montana, underground mining, the richest hill on earth, copper mines. And this was done, back with the copper barons, the copper kings. The biggest, hardest working miners were the mules, and they worked underground for 8 years. That was their stint. They had underground stables. They never saw daylight for 8 years, okay? And these mules knew if there was 5 extra pounds of ore on a load, they would not pull it. They were stubborn. They worked their butts off, and they actually had a better pension than the miners did. They were treated better because they would not work beyond 8 hours. They had an 8-hour shift, and then the other crews would come in. The mules stopped work, and it was so ingrained and conditioned in them, they would not work a minute past. They would not pull 5 pounds more. And at the end of 8 years, they put them out to pasture. That was it. That was their life, their job. They were done working. But they never saw the light of day for 8 years. But stubborn as a mule, they knew their limits and they knew what they would tolerate. You need to know what you will tolerate. And that gets back to your values. We've talked about this a lot. We can shift and move. We can do certain things, but there are certain things I will not budge on, right? Stubborn is not necessarily a bad thing. Okay, there's got to be at least one besides myself out here, troublemaker. Anybody in school, out of school? The troublemaker. I got in trouble in school, out of school. I was a good student and all that kind of stuff, but yeah, I was also edgy. Now we'll call it edgy. We'll tell some of those stories another time, but I had fun. I embraced life, and I was competitive, and I was never lazy, but I did some crazy stuff, not outside of the realm, but I was, instead of troublemaker, I would just call that I was brave and I was a risk taker. I did some crazy stuff, but I was a risk taker and I was brave. And I wasn't afraid to be the first one to do something if I had my heart set on it. So you could call me a troublemaker, a bad person, right? Because I did cause a little bit of trouble when other people followed me, and the bourgeois didn't like that so well. Sometimes the leadership didn't like that because I got in the way of what they were trying to accomplish. But I wasn't bad. That's another label. I wasn't bad. I was just a nonconformist. I did things my way. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good character trait to have if you look at it that way. And here's one, this surprised me. One of the students actually in class, when I asked him what they'd been labeled, he said, slow. People always call me slow. And the class chuckled. I said, oh, hold on. We're not going to go down that road. Slow. Let's talk about that, because slow is often stupid, right? That person's stupid. And I'll tell you what, because I knew enough about this kid already. He wasn't slow. This is what he was. He took his time. He was very methodical. he had a different learning style than most of the other kids in the room, right? He found a need to know information. He needed the right teacher to help him find that information. He wasn't slow. He just processed information differently, and he took his time doing it. He wasn't in a rush. So we have to be careful when we're dealing with people, because we can rob them and rob ourselves, rob our businesses of some incredible talent. You can find talent in the most unlikely places, and sometimes we just have to mine for it. Sometimes we have to do a little bit of extra work, a little extra digging, a little extra finding out about those people and their personalities and what that might mean to our business, right? We might pick up new customers, new clients. We might find somebody who's connected to somebody who's connected to somebody we need to take our business to the next level. But we're not going to find that if we just blow somebody off because they're this or they're that. Those labels are dangerous if we want to get ahead as entrepreneurs. I don't care what business you're in. So next, I actually had different points here. Labels, number one. Rebranding, number two. Taking all those labels, rebranding ourselves, finding the positive. The next thing I'm going to give you is focus on strengths, not weaknesses. So if somebody's labeled you, or if you've labeled somebody else, turn it around, focus on the strengths. Identify the strengths, even if it's previously been called a weakness. Don't settle for that. If you think it's a weakness, really evaluate it. If it's a weakness, great, we can deal with that. But if it's really a strength in disguise, we need to identify it and build that part of our character up, build those talents up. So turn your weaknesses into strengths where you can. And that's going to take a little bit of soul searching, a little bit of looking at how you do things, how you've done things in the past, what caused you to do them that way. Is it the most efficient? Is it the best way? Sometimes we've got to dig a little deep. So here's a quick story to illustrate this. One of my weaknesses is I'm more of an introvert than an extrovert, okay? I feel uncomfortable when I get into big group situations. I've never felt at home being that person that just goes out there and meets and makes new friends. So I've had to find tools, especially in my line of work, in my different careers. I've had to find tools to help me overcome that. How do I meet new people? How do I engage with them? And I learned something from a trial lawyer, a very successful trial lawyer. And this is recent. I'm talking here in the last 3 years. I learned something new to add to my arsenal to overcome that weakness in myself. And this trial lawyer always wore these really exotic, fun socks, right? Different wild colors, different patterns and all that stuff. No matter what, if he was wearing a three-piece business suit, he had these wild, exotic socks on. If he's traveling, first class on an airplane, he's got a casual business wear jacket on and nice shoes. He still had these wild socks. If he was in tennis shoes, he's wearing these wild socks. And I asked him, I said, "Hey, Charles," I said, "here you're this big keynote speaker all over the country and a big trial lawyer." And I said, "Did you wear these all the time?" He said, "Oh yeah, absolutely." He said, "I started wearing these during trials." He said, "Lawyers are the bad guys. We would go in there, we're the bad guys. Whether we're defending someone, prosecuting someone, we're the bad guys. We're the lawyer. We're just the bad guy." He said, "So I wanted to influence the juries. I wanted them to know that they looked over here, even though they may see me as the bad guy, I'm that lawyer guy. They're going to see my socks." And it's like, wow, look at that. He's not just all, there's something fun about this guy. There's something creative about this guy. I wonder what that is. And it softened the jury up. It gave him a softer image, that one little thing. And he made sure, of course, that he would, hike a leg up, cross his legs, whatever. He made sure that they were noticed. And he said on plane flights, people would ask him, because he's the same way. He, not really a people person. But he said on flights, people would be sitting next to him and they'd say, "Hey, I like your socks." And it was a conversation starter, totally neutral. Not what do you do? Not Where are you going? I like your socks. And I told my wife this story and I said, I think I need some socks, right? So she jumps on Amazon. Like 3 days later, I get a bundle of all these different colored socks, and I've been wearing them ever since. And I'll tell you, at the end of a bad day, I can take my shoes off, kick my feet up, and put them on my table, and I'm looking at my happy socks. They're my that's what I call them. They're my happy socks. They make me happy. It's just fun. They're a de-stressor. In the middle of the day, I can look down and I can look at my happy socks and think, man, look at that. Those are bright. Those are cheery. That's something I've done to improve my own character. Happy socks. One little thing. And I learned it from somebody else. So he used it in his professional life. I've turned it and I use it in my personal life. And it gives me something, it breaks the ice. They're icebreaker socks, right? They soften things. I'm an icebreaker. So find your things, whatever you are. And this is what I've discovered with that. I have labeled myself. I'm no longer, an introvert. I'm not an introvert. I'm not labeling myself as an introvert anymore. What I am is a situational extrovert. Coin that term. I'm a situational extrovert. If the situation requires it, I'm going to be in your face. I'm going to be the guy asking the questions. I'm going to be the guy introducing myself. I'm going to be the guy talking. I'm going to be the one eliciting conversation from people. Strangers, I don't care. Situational extrovert. If the situation requires it, I'm doing it. As an entrepreneur, if I have to get in an uncomfortable zone, I'm getting in an uncomfortable zone. That is required. It's required of me. It's required of my job. Okay? So your application of this, do an honest self-evaluation. Be thinking, watching, careful of your words to other people. All right? And lastly, know that you can change. If you've been branded something, if you've called yourself something, here's another one. I'm never good at remembering names. You might not have been good at remembering names, but you can be good at remembering names. You just have to take the time to learn how to do it and practice more. Practice like everything else. Know that you can change. So that's my little spiel for tonight. I hope you got a little something out of it. And I'll turn it over, Jim. I'm going to give you the floor. And if anyone's got questions, not only about this, about anything else, raise your hand and we will pick you up. Look at that. I've been so busy going through this. I didn't read through the chat pile here. I'll go through that. Jim, if you want to weigh in.
Yeah, thanks, Rod. Good discussion. I liked your point about mining for it, right? Mining for it. Find out your purpose and who you are. I was just listening to a great podcast on my run tonight, and it was basically talking about how much talent is out there that we've never seen because that person has given up too early, too soon, or they've neglected to look past those labels that you're talking about, right? They allowed society to put labels on them and they quit. And more than likely, they quit too soon before they saw their fullest potential, right? So I love when you say mind for it. You can find it within your soul to do what you're looking to do and what you want to achieve. And don't let people give you those labels. And if it requires a rebrand, that's fine. Rebrand, but mind for it and get it done. Because man, just imagine how many talented people out there gave up too early because of that. So great point. I wanted to talk about this rebranding as well as it relates to maybe the direction you're on. Rod and I had a very appropriate business phone call today. We're pitching a big company on a program that we're doing, which is an extension of Y.E.S. Now, Rod and I have been working on this presentation to this company that's next Thursday. We've been working on this for 2 weeks. We met last week to talk about it. We've been tossing ideas on the computer, text, phone calls, and Rod put together a beautiful presentation today, kind of as a precursor to next week's meeting. And after our precursor meeting today with somebody on the inside, we got so many insights from him that we had to do a 180 on our presentation today. literally the last 2 weeks, we've been going one direction, and we literally flipped the script upside down and did a 180. Now, we could have complained about, gosh, this is where we're going to go, and we did all this work in these meetings, but instead we took good, solid advice, right? We learned what we needed to do, and we flipped the script today. So don't be afraid to do that, and do it without thinking, like overthinking it. Sometimes we get in our own way by overthinking it. It's okay to flip the script, rebrand, do that 180. And finally, I just want to give one quick example of where somebody else doing a 180 gained me as a customer. So last winter, Samantha and I were at the local rodeo, which we like to do in the wintertime, and we ran into a couple. Actually, they ran into us because we had our Lions not sheep shirts on, something that we like to wear, especially in public. It offends a few, but anyways, this couple walks up to us and like, hey, you look like the kind of people we can hang out with. Well, as it turns out, they are friends with Sean Whalen, whom we also know lightly. They're clearly were much better friends with Sean than we were. But anyways, it was a nice meeting, but we didn't realize these people are like superstar celebrities in their world that we aren't a part of. Upon further research, we realized that the woman was a world champion bodybuilder, and he was a world, marketer with 500,000 followers. The point is that we're kind of a little bit turned off maybe by their personalities. Maybe they were too larger than life for us. But Rob Bailey, the man that we met, we've kind of loosely followed them. And I thought not too long ago, like, I want to give these people a shot. We were kind of a little bit unfair because of their celebrity status. Well, Rob posted a video a couple weeks ago about a rebrand, about a redirection of what he was going to do in his company, who he was, what he stands for. And he did a complete rebrand on everything from his health to his company to his approach. And I really paid attention to that. And last week, as I've watched this kind of unfold in the last month, I actually purchased some of his products because I felt like, wow, he's done something different. Now he's appealing to me, right? And this guy's been in business for a long time. So even somebody that has this status and this established reputation for what he does, even they could rebrand and see the benefits of that by just a little shift in direction. And what I think I saw out of Rob, and I'll leave it at this, is that I think I saw authenticity in his true desire to change who he was and the way he was doing things. So maybe what turned me off before, all of a sudden I saw the heart in what he was doing because of what he was talking about, and the realization that he admitted, I'm a broken person. I need to do this. I let go of that. I didn't try hard enough. I could be better. And all these things appeal to my senses in his rebrand. So it does work. I spent $100. If it worked for his 500,000 followers, the guy's probably buying a new jet right now, right? So anyways, don't be afraid to do what needs to be done when it relates to the things that Rod was talking about. So great job, Rod. Thank you for the lesson. So you've got at least
welcome. Hand up. Thanks. Taylor, I see you've got your hand up. Will you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hello. Okay. So I don't necessarily have questions, but I was taking notes and felt like I had some insights just to kind of add, because you said so many things that really made sense to me. And the first made me think of my kids. You were talking about, oh no, it was before that. I was thinking about, as you were talking, how, sometimes, yes, qualities are mislabeled, but sometimes there are things that need to change in a person. So that got me thinking about my kids, and when are the times that my kids have most understood a correction from me or their father? It's when they feel the most secure in who they are. And it's usually because I have told them, we have spent time, invested in them, built them up. And because of that, they have a respect for us. They know that we actually see who they really are, and that we believe that they are good. So when we're dealing with other people, we need to be seeing them for who they really are, and that they are good. And I feel like in those times, like I'm talking about my children, but I think it also applies to adulthood, there may be times where we do have to approach somebody and tell them something that's hard to hear, but true. So if we've established that relationship with them beforehand, and they know that we have a general respect of their humanity, it seems that they are more likely to take what we have to say to heart. You know what I mean? Okay, so that was one thing I garnered from what you said. And then the other quick thing I'm going to say, I have three things I wanted to mention. The other quick thing is, what would we do without the people who are different? My sister-in-law had listened to a podcast, which I regrettably have not listened to, but I believe it was about, I think it was about D-Day, right? So storming the beaches of Normandy, and everything that went into making that happen, and the things that went wrong, the people that jerry-rigged airplanes and boats, and the lives that should have been lost but weren't. And it's like, these are people, and it made me think of my husband. He's always like fixing stuff, and that's his favorite words is jerry-rigged. But honestly, the people that have that mindset are the people that succeed, because they're brave enough to try something even though it might not make sense to everybody else. So I definitely think there's value in being different. So I agree with you there. And then if everybody doesn't know, which probably most people don't, that Rod is my dad. And my favorite story that really shaped my own view of myself that has to do with labeling is, I was a very serious ballet dancer growing up. And I remember being really young, and I was kind of at a point where I was getting more serious about what I was doing, and not all of my peers were on that same level as far as their mindset. But I also was too young to notice that can sometimes irritate people, who aren't on the same level as you. So I would walk into my dance studio, and there would always be like a set of girls who were looking at me and whispering to each other, and they would laugh, and they would like look me up and down and stuff. And I remember going home and telling my parents, like, what in the world? Like, what have I done? That is so wrong. Like, they treat me like I'm a freak, right? And my dad would always say something to the effect of like, well, are you? Is it true? And it's like, well, no, that's not who I am. They've taught me who I am. No, it's not true. I'm not a freak. And he would say, okay, so keep doing what you're doing. So what's the problem here? We have a non-issue, because you know who you are. And so I just want to say that just whenever you're feeling like I've been mislabeled or whatever, just think of Rod's voice in your head saying, well, are you that? Because you know who you are. And for me, my faith has taught me that every single human being has value. We all have something to offer. And so if we're going to see that in other people, we have to first see that in ourselves, So you know who you are. Love it. Thank you, Rod, Dad.
Thank you, Taylor. I appreciate your insights greatly, and you're welcome. Anybody else have any comments? I did see some things in here online. Asking why is a sure path to being a troublemaker. Sounds like you and I are on the same page there, Brendan. Yeah. I've learned to ask why in different ways now, though. To find ways for them to be asking why. That works. Hey, Samantha, it's nice to see your face on there. Hey.
So I was just on my phone, and my phone died. So I ran upstairs real fast, looking great in my workout attire. But anyways, there were so many great topics that you mentioned in there. And I feel like we can all use, especially putting people's, I don't know, sometimes we take their personalities as downsides, like you said, or we don't make it a positive thing. And I just had to learn that a lot over the last 2 years of substituting that school, something I never thought I would do. But took a lot of these kids, you know, personalities as like, oh my gosh, like what is wrong with these kids, or how were they raised, and having to learn that they're not always negatives and downsides, and that's sometimes just their personality, and we have to take them as positives and help them grow on them. But so that was a really awesome thing. But what I really wanted to say, as I'm out of breath because I ran upstairs so fast, is a lot of times in this growth that I've been in the last, I don't know, 2 years of trying to build my own brand and falling on my face and all these other things, is a lot of the times that I've fallen off or not been successful in what I've been trying to do is insecurity issues in ourselves. And so anyway, sometimes when we are having issues with other people's personality issues or whatever that is, it's sometimes us. And we have to look into ourselves and realize that maybe it's not them and maybe it's you. And finding those downsides in yourself is hard. So anyways, sometimes it's you. And I guess that was my big thing. Sorry, I'll get out of your screen here.
No, thanks for joining. It's always nice to not just see a name, but see a face. So even if it means jumping on someone else's computer, I love it. Thanks, Samantha. And what a great reminder, you know, and that was part of my impetus here, is look within yourself first. And we all have to look back at that. We are all a product of our environment. We are all a product of that, but it doesn't have to define us. So again, rebranding, I think, is probably, maybe I should have subtitled this lesson tonight as rebrand yourself, but we have plenty of opportunities. Anything else? Anybody else? Anybody want to weigh in? If not, we don't have to stay on here all night. I'll let you get back to dinner with friends or working on your business plans.
I just wanted to say, great topic, Rod. It kept making me think about my kids, though. I was, I'm like in business mode, and you kept talking, and then obviously at the end, Taylor jumps in, being your daughter, talking about memories. And I'm like thinking about my 7-year-old and some of the conversations we have. And I'm just thinking, dang, how much does that apply to us as adults too?
Mm-hmm.
Like the other day I had a conversation with him about, hey, I'm hard on you because I see greatness in you.
Right.
Well, we need to have that conversation with ourselves too sometimes, I think. So great conversation tonight.
Absolutely right, Brendan. Thanks. There's greatness in all of us. That's why we're on this call. Taylor, final words?
Only just really quick, sorry, and then I promise I'll zip it. But Brendan, your words reminded me of somebody that I adore and follow on Instagram, don't know in person, but have chatted back and forth with, a very successful t-shirt marketer of all things. Anyway, she recently was sharing about how she's raising her 2 sons, and she was talking about how she expects clear words from their mouths. So she doesn't accept yeah or whatever the other, yeah is what comes to mind right now. You will say yes. Why? Because you're better than that. So I just loved her word choice. It's like, yeah, you speak that way. You hold yourself accountable because you're better than that. So I just wanted to throw that in there because I loved it and I felt like it was applicable. Thanks.
And it was. Thanks. Jim, I appreciate that, Taylor. Jim, I'll let you wrap it up tonight.
Sounds good. Rod, I want to thank you for the class again tonight. Also, the people that participated, as Jim put in the comments, it's nice to see so many faces. Look, this thing, like I said last week, we want participants. We don't want members. Participating means, you show up on screen, you ask good questions, and we all get value out of those questions. So I want to especially thank those that have been commenting or speaking up the last several meetings. I think almost everybody in here has done that. And that's going to allow us all to grow. So thank you very much for that. It allows us to give you more insights based on our knowledge and experience. Also, don't forget, we do have a directory on the back end of Y.E.S. And, maybe somebody on here is resonating with you. Don't be afraid to reach out to them. It's not a place where you can, I wouldn't want to see you pitching your sell, and what you're trying to sell to people, but maybe just look out for some camaraderie or friendship or advice or whatever that might be. And if a sale happens to happen, great for both of you because there was probably a good fit. Next week, I'm talking about dealing with failure. And, it's an important topic because oftentimes we start things and they don't work out as we suspected. And you can almost already imagine that I'm going to talk about success as a result of failure. So that's a little heads up. But I do want to say we have 68 more days left in this year. And if you're the type of person that likes to have a New Year's goal or resolution, well, start it now. Start it tomorrow morning. Don't wait, because you'll be 68 days ahead of anybody else that's going to wait till January 1st. Okay, so if you're going to get on a diet and lose weight, or you're going to start a new business, you're going to start saving or spending more time with your kids or your family, start now. You'll have a 68-day head start on the competition. I love the holidays because I know people are taking it easy. They're slacking. They're not thinking about, getting ahead and beating the competitors. It's my favorite time of year. I will be enjoying my family, but at the same time, I'm going to be sliding ahead of anybody else that's doing what I'm doing. That's just how I am. It's my competitive spirit. And for those of you that were on the call 38 days ago or somewhere around there when I started 75 Hard, I'm down 6 pounds. I've got my mileage up. Things are going great. So in case you're wondering if 75 Hard's for you, I can't see the downside of it, especially where I'm sitting today. So Rod, thanks again for your call. I look forward to seeing everybody next week, and talk soon.
Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.
Appreciate it.